Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. It's the Ancient One here, the Bachelor Supreme, the master of the deceptive arts, he who remains, the Phantom Menace, and I've returned again with a mystery unraveling video. Today I wanted us to try and unravel the mystery of the body count. Now, in truth, I am aware that we will never really know the truth of this number, right? But we can discover some useful information that will help us uncover at least a very close, realistic, and workable estimation. Yesterday, we discussed the dangers of intimacy in what was, quite frankly, an interesting and embarrassingly hilarious article, one that I enjoyed reading very, very much. But today I wanted us to discuss the question of body count, but from the perspective of the amount of intimacy that people are having. So, what a lot of people a lot of philosophers, let me use that phrase, have decided to harp on is the number of partners that a person has. And I would like to shift your attention more to the number of intimate interactions that that person has had, right? Especially if, for instance, you break up with a counterpart and they are away from you for weeks and perhaps months, and then they come back. You can be certain that during that amount of time, they have had a specific amount of interactions, right? And these numbers are going to, quite frankly, amaze you. These are numbers that I have mocked. I have mocked these percentages in terms of how much intimacy the average person really gets from these relationships. And this is really based on a comparison. So I'm basing that on the amount of intimacy that you actually get based on what you are paying and what you are contributing in terms of resources and those kinds of things into these romance wars. So it's really a question of what do you give and then what do you get in return. Initially, these numbers don't seem surprising or even impressive. They just seem average. But if you expand them over a period of time, say 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, right? They are staggering. They add up very, very quickly, right? One of the big issues on online platforms, in fact, it's probably the biggest issue, the biggest mystery, is the issue of the body count. It's a contentious issue for both the knee bender and the counterparts alike. And it is something that, quite frankly, the counterpart has kept as a very closely guarded secret, right? They don't want you to know if the number is low or high, because no matter what she says, the number's always going to be too high. If she says 1, she knows you won't believe her because that's not true. So if she says 10, you're going to say that's too much, right? If she says 5, you're going to ask questions. You're going to interrogate her, and she's going to be forced to lie. No matter what answer she gives, it's going to induce you to ask further questions, and eventually you're going to hear something that you don't like, and you're going to disqualify her. And you're going to disqualify her, quite frankly, from tremendous resources that she may or may not otherwise get from other people, but probably not. So this is something that the counterpart keeps very, very secret, right? But for the knee benders and also the bachelors alike, the issue is one of investment and expenditure, either in resources, time, sharing knowledge, and wisdom. Now, the knowledge and wisdom part is really underestimated, right? People underestimate how an important piece of information, how a connection, how, if you work in a certain industry that she has no access to. By knowing you, she can access better wealth, better opportunities, better lifestyle, right? By knowing you, she can avoid, future problems. She can, stay out of things that she may not have anticipated, that these things are a danger and a risk to her. By giving her better options, right? You add value into her life just by giving her better options, right? A better place to stay, a different job that can pay a little bit more, those kinds of things, right? So what men don't want is they don't want to give the best of themselves, right, to somebody who has, quite frankly, already given the best of themselves to somebody else. That is not a fair exchange, especially if you are very successful in your employment. You really don't want to bring somebody in who is not up to the task, right? Who is just playing a part, only to find out that their best is quite inferior and they've already given that best to somebody else, right? And if that somebody else is another man that's not accomplished in some identifiable or tangible way, right? So if he's not doing a job that, if it doesn't bring money in now, is guaranteed to bring money into the future, right? If that's not the case, then if you know her body count, then you're going to want to know who those people are. And if you discover that these men are, quite frankly, inferior, financially, socially, academically, intellectually, whatever the qualifier is, then you will associate her with those classes or with that class of people, right? Association is a very important thing. It's really an important thing. You want to be sure that you associate with people who are perceived in a certain way and in a certain light, right? For men, it's really a question of, am I going to pay bills that have never existed before, right? And I'm going to pay for a house that you've never lived in before, in a neighborhood where you've never lived in before. You're going to be driving in a car that you couldn't afford before. You're going to be flying to places where you couldn't afford to go before, right? So it's very clear for the man that he will be giving you things that you have never had before, right? So his question is that, and I've asked this question myself, what do you give me? What do you give the man that you did not give another man, right? What is the best part of you that you are bringing forward? Because I'm bringing all these new things. Everything I'm bringing is new because this in the previous relationship, in the previous marriage, I lost all that stuff, right? In the divorce and the breakup. So everything that I'm bringing is all going to be brand new. So what are you bringing that's new to this relationship that you didn't bring in another relationship? What are you giving me that you did not give another man? And the answer to that question is absolutely nothing. The truth is, she brings nothing different, right? She may bring a different personality. In other words, she learned her lesson and she won't be as cantankerous as she might have been with a less accomplished man, but she will be cantankerous, right? She will be difficult at some point. She brings nothing, man. She brings nothing. She's not going to help around with the bills or anything like that, right? In truth, she's giving everyone the same thing in the same way, just at different times in her life. It's the same script, and she runs that script again and again and again. And there are times that you've been in a counterpart's life where she tries to repeat that script, and you may ask her, but haven't we discussed this before? Haven't we worked past this before? Right? She's just going through that same script over and over again. Because in truth, it's the same thing for them. Right? And they all offer the same thing in the same way, in the same capacity. Right? But you will be paying for all new things, new experiences, new destinations, and you'll have new obligations, right? You'll be paying for if there's kids, you'll be paying for those kids, new rates, new taxes, new electric bills. She'll have new ambitions, new dreams, right? All the while, she's giving you the same old, same old. You're getting the same thing that everybody else got, right? And that you've had before, right? So it really is an issue for men. The issue of body count really is an issue for men. Although there is a different dynamic to look at it, right? And we're going to look at that dynamic in a more meaningful way, right? But in truth, men want to know how many men have paid what I'm paying, right? Including your father, who quite frankly never flew you nowhere, never took you to any destinations, right? Never booked you in no hotel in a resort. Your father never paid for you to get on a yacht and ride a helicopter, right? Your father never did that for you. So the man who is now paying this new money, he's going to ask himself, what is the standard here, right? Am I paying what every man has paid, or am I paying more to get less, right? To get worse, because these are all new bills. These are all new bills that I'm getting. You look at the dates on these bills. These bills are updated. So these are this month's bills that I'll be paying for, and not your father, right? But then we contrast that situation of payment with the question of body count, right? The facts are that no man is ever looking for the opportunity to pay for a counterpart's bills, right? Or raise a bender's kids or house a counterpart. It's always a set of circumstances, right? You're always sitting there having a friendly conversation where she randomly brings up the fact that her lease is ending in a few months. In other words, her lease ended a few months ago. She's been already evicted, right? So she's just trying to find a new landing spot, right? And you're that landing spot. No man ever volunteers for that. No man ever brings up the issue and says, how much are you paying here? Oh yeah, you know what? You should keep that money and come live with me. That never happens. That is the counterpart's dream come true, and that never happens, right? It's all from the romantic comedies. No man is going to do that. No man is going to volunteer to pay your bills, man. You know what I mean? Be serious. Be serious. You have to manipulate that situation, right? And in truth, every one of those benders would happily accept intimacy for free, or cheaply, or efficiently, and without delays, rather than having to house a counterpart and feed them and care for them and do all those things, you know? So the big mystery that men struggle with is the question of how many men are there, right? And I believe, based on the statistics, that I may have a more realistic and workable, functional, and plausible answer, or at the very least, a functional probability. The truth is that we will never know how many intimate partners any person has ever had, right? But what we can tell is how many times they have been intimate over the weeks, the years, and the months. And in truth, it could be up to thousands over decades, thousands of intimate interactions. Body count is one thing, but how many times that body has been used, now that is an interesting calculation, right? So, in truth, body count may not be the issue that we should be discussing, because we may never know for sure, right? Um, but we do have a solid idea of how many intimate encounters and how much intimacy a person has had, and the frequency they have had that intimacy with. So let's hypothesize together for a moment, if you will, right? Based on some of the statistics that you can already see on your screen from today's article, what you'll see is that they boldly state at the bottom that on a minimum, right? So people over 45 years old or so are having intimacy once a week, right? Once a week. There are 52 weeks in a year, right? So that equals to 52 encounters in a year, right? So if you've been away from your intimate partner for a month, you can anticipate that they've been intimate with somebody else, if these statistics are consistent, that they've been intimate consistently at least twice a week, a minimum of once, but around twice a week, right? So if they're back after 2 months, that's about 16 encounters. So they've been busy 16 times. So while you may not know who, you know how many, right? 52 encounters over a decade, that is 520 intimate encounters. 520 intimate encounters, right? That might seem like a lot, but that's on the minimum. That's just once a week. That's just once a week. You add in your ABCs. You can increase a lot because you've just met. You're young. Those first 2 years are spectacular, right? So let's say you have a great 10 years, right, and you do it twice a week. That is 1,040 intimate encounters, right? That's twice a week. That's 1,040 intimate encounters. That's a tremendous amount of intimacy, right? So I think that if we cannot decipher in truth what is the body count then we can definitely tell how many times you have been intimate. A minimum, right? Minimum. The maximum is unlimited, but the minimum is worth discussing for or discussing, right? And we are talking about 520 intimate encounters in a decade. If you meet someone in their 30s and their first intimate encounter was when they were 20, 19, 20, just know they've had a minimum of 520. Minimum 520 encounters, right? If they were on a tremendous form, and they doubled it, that's a minimum of 1,040 encounters. Now, we can't say how many people that is, and we may never know, but we know how many. We know how many, right? So, this is in 10 years. If you work it out to, let's say, 40 years, I mean, you're talking about 4,000 to 5,000 intimate encounters. 4,000 to 5,000 intimate encounters. So this is the number that you need to make peace with, right? When you see a counterpart and you've decided to take this to the next level, just know you're talking about 5,000 interactions. And I don't know if you are egotistical about your intimate capacity and your intimate capabilities, but I would say after 2000, and I'm being very generous and liberal here, but after 2000, the mystery is kind of gone. You know, the shock and awe and surprise of it is kind of gone. Despite how you might feel about infidelity and affairs and cheating, after after 2000 of these things, I mean, really, is it really that serious a big deal? I mean, I know you are invested in this and you invested in exclusivity, but after 2000, I mean, we're talking about people in their 30s and 40s. People in their 30s and 40s have definitely hit 2,000 encounters, right? So is it really a mystery now? Does body count really matter after 2,000 encounters? I don't know. For some people, it really does. For some people, it really does. But just knowing that they've had a minimum 2,000 encounters, I mean, that just nullifies a lot for me. It just removes a lot for me. By if you're 35, 30, 35, 40, and you're up to 1,000, between 1,000 to 2,000 encounters. You know, if you're in your 40s and 50s, you've had almost 4,000 encounters. Good, bad, average, whatever they were. Is it really that important? The question of body count. Perhaps it is. Perhaps it is. And as we go through this article, it's going to demonstrate really and give us a clearer picture of what's going on in your partner's intimate past, right? So you might not. So we know some of the actions. We've discussed some of the actions. We've discussed some of the bad things that have happened in your intimate past. And now we can see, quite frankly, just how much intimacy is really being had. On the low end, you're still talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of intimate interactions. The older you get, just on the average, you're already looking at thousands of encounters. I mean, really, does it matter, right? But for some men, it still does. For some men, it might still hold some intrinsic value. So let's have a look at how much intimacy you people have been getting up to recently. The article is entitled Average Intimacy Per Week by Age. So we're going to look at, when people start and how much they're doing it when they start, and then what happens as you get older. How do you match up? Where do you fit in the equation, and what can impact your intimacy drive? This was written by Lucinda Starr, and it was updated on the 17th of March 2025. So it's a fairly recent article. Lucinda starts with key takeaways. She says there is no normal amount of intimacy people should have, as it depends on factors like age, health, relationship status, and stress levels. I agree with all that. On average, couples have intimacy once a week, but this varies greatly across individuals and life stages. So if that's once a week, that's 52 times a year, 520 times in 10 years. Younger adults, particularly those in their 20s, tend to have the most intimacy due to their higher testosterone levels, as well as the fact that they have the time. So if you're partying all night and you are sleeping all day, you are probably going to have more opportunity for intimacy. However, as people age, factors like declining testosterone, health issues, and life stresses, having a job, having kids, having bills, having responsibilities, all these things can reduce intimacy frequency. Open communication with your partner, addressing underlying issues like stress or health concerns, and even scheduling intimacy can help improve intimacy satisfaction. Seeking professional help, such as intimacy therapy or medical treatment, can also be beneficial for addressing specific challenges. So, yes, the issue of scheduling intimacy is something that I would say I do but don't announce. So I will have a specific time where I allocate an opening for this and then accommodate this activity. I really don't rely on serendipity to be the thing that gets me over the line, right? I really don't. Now, I'm not recommending that everybody do this, but if you have a time that you know you're open to do this, you can really plan your activities more efficiently and effectively instead of throwing your energy all over the place every time, trying to get a little bit here, trying to get a little bit there. That being said, you also have the capacity to say no. So if somebody says they're available on Thursday and your kickoff time is on Saturday, then at least you can try to persuade them and move them toward that time. But just don't tell them that this is your intimacy time, right? Rather just make it a scheduling issue, right? Let's proceed with confidence. In your early 20s, you've got the highest levels of testosterone and time passing through your veins. That means you've probably got a higher intimacy drive and are having more intimacy. I believe this is possibly true. There are statistics to indicate that there are young men who are not having intimacy. I'm here to tell you, young men, that if you don't get it when you're young, you're not going to get it when you're old. There are people who are telling you that the older you get, the more opportunities you have. This is not true. You have responsibilities and you have things to do. Really, even if people are interested in you, it's very difficult to accommodate all their shenanigans. You really can't be staying up all night long pillow talking. That's out of the question, right? Absolutely not. You got work in the morning, right? But when you're young, sure, sure. It says here, Let's read that again. That means you've probably got a higher intimacy drive and are having more intimacy. Younger people, particularly those aged 18 to 39, tend to have the most intimacy compared to older demographics. So they don't go younger than that initially. But there is a segment of this article where they demonstrate, at a younger age, that people are getting intimate. So these are your children, people. These are your children, all right? They're doing it. 18 to 39, they say that's really where the most intimacy is being had, and also corresponding with the highest number of births. So I agree with this number. 20 to 40 is, 30 to 40 is really where it's happening. But 20 to 40, that's where you're going to have kids. That's where you're having your children. But how much intimacy you have also depends on so many different factors, like your relationship status or your age, your health, and how stressed you are. I was led to believe that intimacy decreases stress. So being stressed might incline you to do, what you can. But I can also understand that being in a stressful situation, intimacy is the last thing that you need, or it's the last thing on your mind. Or spending time discussing it with somebody is really probably not convenient for you. Not to mention what would happen if that person was to be inseminated or pregnant. That would ruin your life. Get a vasectomy. A study conducted in 2019 showed that married couples have more frequent intimacy than single people, and other research has shown that the frequency of intimacy decreases with age. So I believe this is true to a certain extent. I believe that overall, being in a relationship over time, you do have a lot more intimacy, but it does drop off over time. So you start off much higher, but then you level out to where the rest of us are, which is really once a week, right? So you might be starting at 2 or 3 times initially, but you're gonna come back to once a week. But if you don't have like an intimate partner, you could go weeks sometimes and skip that once a week, which people in relationships are probably not going to do, just for the sake of saving their relationship. The article continues, but there is no normal amount of intimacy you should be having. It really depends on the individual person or the relationship you're in. So some relationships are getting it more than others. So if you're getting it less than once a week, you're one of those that's not really doing well. In case you're wondering where you fit into the equation, we're doing a deep dive into all things average intimacy life, breaking it down by age, why people in general are having less intimacy on average, and what to do if you want to improve your intimacy life. How often do couples have intimacy? She continues, there isn't really a right answer for how much intimacy people should be having. Various factors such as modern life, individual and couple specific factors, communication, and age related changes impact intimacy lives, influencing intimacy frequency and intimacy. Right? So there's a lot that can go wrong, they're saying here, right? So there are things that can really affect how much intimacy you get, and that would really be your life, right? Things, modern life, individual and couple specific factors that could be anything. Communication, are you guys talking? You could be old, changes over time, right? All kinds of things really could get in the way of your intimacy. So you do get a lot of it when you're young because you have the time. So you can miss one opportunity now and get another one later. But really, it doesn't go like that as you get older. Once you start working, work comes first. It really does. It continues, but a 2017 study conducted with 26,000 people from 1989 to 2014 found that the average amount of intimacy was 54 times per year, which is about once a week. Also, I undercalculated by saying it's 520 over a decade. It's 540 over a decade. Oh, I missed 20 of them. I missed 20 of those encounters. So you can just go ahead and add 20 more encounters to your wife and your girlfriend's count. Let's continue. Another study conducted found that 31% of couples have intimacy a few times a week. 28% of couples have intimacy a few times per month, and 8% of couples have intimacy once per month. Oh, wow, once every 30 days. 33% of couples either never have intimacy or rarely have intimacy. So, the largest percentage there is the 33% of couples who have no intimacy. I'm assuming these are people that have been married or been in a relationship for a very long time. But most people are getting it once or twice a week. And the very low amount of people are getting it once a month. So this once a month very much indicates that the relationship is going to fall apart. If you're only intimate once a month, there's no way you're going to survive. Your relationship is not going to make it. So there's a huge spectrum of responses to this question and no single clear answer either. This is very interesting. So they've taken all of these and averaged them out to about once a week. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Breaking down the frequency of intimacy by age. So let's see what your kids are doing. It can be interesting to dive into how much intimacy people are having based on their life stage and age. The average amount of intimacy people have in part depends on age group, very much so. Data from the Kinsey Institute research team found that American adults in the 18 to 29 age group have intimacy 112 times per year. So between I'd say, let's say 20 and 30. Let's say 20 and 30. I'm not going into the teens. Between 20 and 30. So 112 times a year, that's 1,120 intimate encounters. 1,120, I can do this number in my head. 1,120 intimate encounters between 20 and 30. So by the time she hits 30, she's had well over 1,000 encounters. She's had well over 1,000 encounters. So you can infer what you want from that, but that's a lot of intimacy. That is a lot of intimacy. That's more than twice a week. Let's continue. Oh, well, it's roundabout. I think it's just over twice a week. Man, that's a lot of intimacy. 1,120. So I mean, if you put that into a body count situation, does that really matter? Does it matter if it was 10 people or 20 people? It's 1,000 times. It's 1,000 encounters. To me, this number actually means more. It means more than the number of people, right? Let's continue. And mind you, there was no condom use either. In the 30 to 39 age group, 30 to 40, I'll say, couples have intimacy about 86 times per year, and over 28% of 45-year-olds have intimacy once a week. So the ones that are having intimacy once a week are people over 45. Under 45, it's, what is it, 86 times. So in my mind, it's once a week plus the ABCs, anniversaries, birthdays, and Christmas, right? Once every 4 days, about. But the other guys, they're doing it over twice a week, 20 to 30. So that's really where it's happening. That's really where it's happening. And this is really where a lot of the kids are being born. Yeah, this number is true. So I'm just stuck on the 1,120. Just remember that you meet her at 30, she's over 1,000. For men, testosterone levels are higher in their 20s. So your intimacy drive is at its highest. This is true. Over time, testosterone levels drop, and this can lower your intimacy desire and therefore impact your intimacy frequency. So, if your testosterone is low, your interest is also going to be low. But it's also not like that. It's also a question of you do have more responsibilities in your 40s, so you don't really have as much time to indulge in it as you would like, right? But people in their 40s are extremely intimate, not as much, not as frequently. I think it's a combination of lower testosterone levels as well as not having any time to indulge. In your 30s, it continues, testosterone levels drop by 10%, which can lower your libido, and your intimacy drive tends to drop 1% per year until your 40s. So testosterone does drop, and that will affect many things. That's why you got to keep exercising, and will yourself into health and fitness as you get older, because your testosterone is just not doing it for you the way it did it in your 20s. I mean, testosterone is a killer of fat. It just destroys fat. So as it drops, you're going to need to be doing some of that work yourself and will yourself into health and fitness. On the flip side, for women in their 30s, their intimacy drive reaches its peak, which can cause issues in couples' intimacy life. So you're going to get cheated on, right? So she probably wants it more and with more people. But I think this also coincides with the desire for having more children. I think there's a very strong desire for women in this age group to have children for various reasons, right? On top of that, men in their 40s tend to start reporting issues with member dysfunction, right? So one in four. This is really issues of weight and dehydration, right? So you need to be drinking more water so you can get the blood to flow down. And also you need to lose some weight. You can't be fat, right? That's going to affect a lot of things. But also generally as you get older, yeah, I mean, if you've had 1,000 encounters, your tools have been put to good use. So you do start to drop. But fortunately, they have a pill for that. For men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, intimacy activity drops a lot more, I beg your pardon, because of a bunch of changes happening to their bodies, where men experience poor quality standing ovations, reduced release volume, and lower intimacy functioning in general. I hope those euphemisms brought that reading across. So yeah, the older you get, the less frequency you're doing it, right? So the younger you are, the more you're doing it. The older you get, the less frequency you're doing it. However, there is an indication that people who are retired are being much more intimate, because there is a rise of STIs in that community. I believe the prognosticator made this point in his own philosophy. So I remember that information coming straight from him, saying that people in the older demographic, especially the retired ones, so these are people who aren't working anymore, are being a lot more intimate. So you could sort of compare the two demographics of the people in the younger ages, in their 20s, and people in their 60s and 70s being more intimate because they have more time. They have more time to accommodate that, right? But while these stats can be a handy benchmark, there's no hard fast rule to how much intimacy you should have. Lucinda continues to ask the question, why are people having less intimacy? So we know that age is one of the factors, but let's have a look why your intimacy is not working out after you hit that 1,000. There are so many different factors as to why people are having less frequent intimacy, from age to intimacy dysfunction, relationship problems, and more. Research shows that people are overall having less intimacy amongst every age. Really, that's very interesting. So it's not just the young men that are suffering, it's everyone across all factors. These are the romance wars. It's the romance war playing itself out. All forms of intimacy activity have decreased from 2009 to 2018. Young people reporting no intimacy activity increase to, young people reporting no intimacy activity increased to 44.2% from 28.8%. What were you guys doing in the early 2000s? For young men, and 49.5 from 74% for young women. Wow. Wow. Let me read that again. Young people reporting no intimacy activity increased from 44.2 to from 40 increased to 44.2% from 28.8%. So it went from 28% to 44.2% for young men, and it went from 49% to 74% for young women. So young women are also not being intimate. That's very interesting. Intimacy frequency and activity involve lots of physical and mental processes, and sometimes life stresses and other factors can get in the way of intimacy. Intimacy. Some common reasons why people have less intimacy include, it's actually very difficult reading it, trying to substitute words as you go along. So it does affect my frequency, but I do have to use clean words. I've learned my lesson. Life stress or relationship stresses. So if you guys have kids, that's definitely a stress, right? Kids are a big stress. So you got those kids, you can be certain that they'll affect your intimacy, as well as if you have bills piling up. Mental health issues like anxiety and depression, absolutely, right? If you're not feeling good. The irony is that it's something that makes you feel good, but people kind of like to feel good when they do it. So you don't want the feel good factor afterwards. You want to feel good before so that you can go ahead and feel easy to do it. It's ironic, right? When in fact you might want to do it when you don't feel good so that it makes you feel good. Being busy with work, kids, and other personal and professional commitments, I think I already discussed that. Kids will ruin your life. Get a vasectomy. I can't tell you how many times. But some of you are going to want to experience this for yourself. And I really hope you suffer. I really hope you suffer. If you thought you were going to have kids and you were doing the right thing and trying to especially to show your parents that you've grown up and show the community and society as a whole that you've grown up. I hope you're miserable. I hope you suffer right through all of that because you should have got a vasectomy instead of having those kids. The next issue is personal health issues or your partner's health. So, if somebody's physically incapable of being intimate, that will definitely bring down your frequency. Aging, definitely as you get older, it's less and less. This is not to imply that you don't do it, but the desire for it, the mystery behind it. I mean, you've already hit 1,000 intimate encounters by the time you are 30. So minimum 1,000. So, as you get older, the mystery really goes out of it. The joy might still be there, but the mystery is completely out. Lack of communication between you and your partner. Sure, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how communicate. I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I can't see how arguing over towels and discussing chores is going to induce intimacy. And I will say intimacy dysfunction, like member dysfunction and premature completion. Yeah, these can definitely ruin the party, but I believe these will go along with personal health issues, right? So if you're not well physically, you're definitely not to be going to be intimate. Um, some people will stop even because we discussed things like muscle pains and different types of injuries yesterday. So yeah, it's a very physical activity. So indeed, any physical pain or harm or injury can cause a decrease in activity. The key is to do what feels right for you and understand what factors might be at play and preventing you from reaching a certain level of intimacy frequency. So they say here, do what feels right for you. Try your best to get to that 1,000 before you hit 30. Should you be planning for intimacy? I believe this is for an older demographic. I don't think this will affect you if you are in your 20s and perhaps still in your prime, enjoying your life. It says here, sometimes your lifestyle can get in the way of intimacy frequency, and there seems to be no time to have intimacy with your intimacy partner. Um, Research shows that the more intimacy couples have, the happier they are. I can understand that until you get her pregnant. It's always fun until somebody gets pregnant. 2015 study found that happiness and well-being among couples are positive when they have intimacy once a week. So that's once a week. Apparently, that's really the golden number. That's what's keeping you together. It's not too much for you to get annoyed with her. It's not too little for you to leave. It's just the right amount, right? It can keep couples going for years. That once a week, right? Um, that's 52 times a year, by the way, and that is 540 times a year. Just remember that while you kiss your partner goodnight. 540 minimum. We aren't telling you to have intimacy daily, but based on research, having intimacy once a week can be great for your overall well being. So, your partner's intimacy, your partner's well being, doing great, doing great. Sometimes you've got to plan your intimacy, which can take the pressure of you and your partner about whether you're having enough intimacy, right? So, if you plan it, which I do, I suggest as a man you need to know when, where, how, and why things are gonna take place. You do need to have a plan, But they say that planning it can take the pressure off you and your partner, but also it can make it kind of like a chore, right? Because when the moment comes and they're really not in the mood and they do it anyway, you do want them to at least enjoy it. And scheduling it can make it a chore for people. But when you schedule it for yourself in your mind and people don't know that they've been scheduled in, you'll be excited for it and they may be too. But if they know that they're in a schedule, that can take the fun right out of it, right? It can make it seem mundane. In order to schedule intimacy, you've got to have a clear line of communication with your partner and come to a mutual understanding of how much intimacy you want to have. Good luck having that conversation. That sounds like a complete argument. That sounds like a complete argument just waiting to happen. Because, she may very well feel like she's killing it, right? She may very well feel like she is satisfying you in just the most immaculate way. And then here you are talking about you're not getting enough. Good luck with that conversation. I wish you the very best. Spontaneous intimacy can be a lot of fun, but if you're looking to increase your intimacy satisfaction, there's no harm in being proactive about it either. I think a lot of men can accept that, but counterparts do like a certain level of serendipity and spontaneity. So they might feel like you've taken the magic out of the whole experience. Um, good luck having that conversation. I can only imagine. I can only imagine if she says no. Then how do you proceed? What do you now? What, argue about it? That's definitely not going to turn her on. Not at all. So, good luck. Good luck. Lucinda asks, what should you do if you're not happy with how often you have intimacy? Well, this should be good. Many couples and married couples start off having more intimacy at the start of their relationship. Everyone does. But after a while, intimacy frequency drops off because life gets in the way, things get real. If you and your partner are both unhappy with how much intimacy you're having, here are some options to consider. Talk about it with your partner. Oh, that's just an argument waiting to happen. If you're happy with your current intimacy life, the best thing you can do is talk about it. Sorry, if you're unhappy with your current intimacy life, the best thing you can do is talk about it with your partner. Once you've got a clear line of communication and you're on the same page, you will not be on the same page. You can try scheduling intimacy, which is going to fall apart very soon, and other things that you're both comfortable with. The counterpart is not an organized person. They don't like structure because structure forces them to be accountable for failure, right? So ultimately, by trying to put her on some type of schedule, what you're doing is you're providing a masculine solution to something where masculinity may not be the solution, right? If your partner has decided to forego intimacy with you, bringing it up may not be the best thing. She may want to be seduced, right? For you to do some of the things you used to do to get her. But, you're 5 years in, you know, and you may not be inclined for seduction. And seduction can take hours. You might not have hours of the day to massage this person's ego and win her over to your side, especially if you have kids. So I don't know how good talking is going to be when seduction is really what got you there in the first place, right? So having an argument about it is really not something that I see happening. in terms of a solution. But then again, I'm not married, so I would just assume you people argue for anything anyway. Since you're going to be arguing about towels and teaspoons, might as well argue about this too. So when you're done arguing, you want to get to the root cause. Man, relationships are miserable, aren't they? Now you have to get to what's under, what lies beneath, what's under the skin. Oh, let's continue. If you've got a lowered intimacy drive, or you're not as intimately active as you'd like to be, understanding why you're not having as much intimacy as much as you'd like can help fix the issue. Let's see. Sometimes it could be life stresses, mental health issues, certain medications, or maybe you're suffering from performance dysfunction and you're a little embarrassed to talk about it. Maybe you're just not turned on. All those things could be true. All those things could be true. But medications, along with certain other illicit substances, things like alcohol, those can absolutely lead to, performance dysfunction, right? So, yeah, some of these issues are well known. If performance dysfunction is responsible for your lowered intimacy frequency, there are medical treatments to consider. This is true. Uh, Pilot's clinical dysfunction treatment, I'm just going to skip that word, offers both on demand or daily options for whatever your needs are when you need to treat dysfunction. With treatment, 78% of men see improvement. So get the pill, it works. I believe that's what they're trying to say. Pilot's premature discharge treatment is great for those suffering from premature discharge, which sees a 74% improvement. So, yes, you're going all the way. If you get the pill, you go all the way. This is known. This is known. The pill works, right? So there's many pharmaceutical things that don't work, but the pill is one of them. Almost 80% improvement and 75% completion. If you prefer a different route, Pilot also offers treatment via a 4-week training program and control device program for intimacy health experts, or by intimacy health experts, improving premature discharge for 65% of patients. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know what they'll do in a 4-week training program that will improve, you know what I mean, your performance. I mean, I'm curious now. What 4 weeks? What are they going to teach you in 4 weeks? Now they've got me curious. Just out of just out of knowing what information they provide. We know it can be embarrassing to seek treatment for intimacy function, which is why Pilot offers online consultations with an Aussie, so this is an Australian practitioner, to take the judgment out of seeking treatment. Plus, they offer discreet shipping, making it less stressful to reach out and get help. Just go talk to your doctor and get a prescription. Go talk to your doctor, get a prescription, and then go to your pharmacy and get the pill. But do your research. Do your research. Find out what works for you, and go ahead, man. I mean, the pill works. The pill works, and it's really the kind of thing that works with no controversy, right? The circumstances of controversy that you hear about are really when people overdo it. But I believe if you take it as prescribed, I've heard no complaints. I've heard no complaints about this issue. So go ahead and talk to your doctor, but talk to them about a vasectomy first, and then get these contraptions. And then finally, when all else has failed, you can go see a therapist, which I honestly don't know what a therapist is going to do. If you are having a private issue with your member, how is a therapist going to resolve that issue? I don't see the logic in this, but let's read Lucinda's take and see where she will lead us. She says, if you've tried communication with your partner, but nothing seems to work, so I told you, so you try to talk and all it did was start an argument, it might be worth seeing a therapist. It's not. Um, therapist A therapist is a form of counseling focused on intimacy issues, and many couples see intimacy therapists to increase and improve their intimacy life and intimacy satisfaction, as well as work through relationship issues. The truth is, all relationships, I believe, will probably come to an end one way or another. And you may still care for each other and still love each other, but there's a point where you're just not doing it for each other anymore. And you may have done it for each other in the newer days, but as it goes, really that fire starts to dim and it becomes a huge effort trying to keep that fire burning. But you kind of have to because you've made that commitment. But in truth, I don't think that going to a therapist is gonna turn your wife on or your husband on. I think it's gonna absolutely turn your husband off. And if it doesn't go your wife's way, she's absolutely gonna be frustrated by this, and then she's gonna frustrate you. Right? I don't think it's going to work. Ultimately, there is no right answer for how much intimacy you should have, she continues. It really all depends on your own subjective experience of your own intimacy activity and whether or not you and your partner want to be having intimacy anymore. I think in the end, it really boils down to the fact that we really just don't want each other anymore. And I'm not a brash to say this because I could care less about the outcome of your relationship or your child rearing for that matter. Right? You should have got a vasectomy and avoided all of this. None of this would be happening had you got a vasectomy and just, did in kind, right? But now here you are, 5, 6, 7 years in. The love is gone, the money is gone, the flame is gone. And now you've got responsibilities and stress and kids and all kinds of things when you should have got a vasectomy and avoided all this. So, you know what I mean? If you've gotten older and fatter and all kinds of things and you're just not attractive anymore, you really can't expect someone to be attracted to you just because they made a commitment. That's not fair. They made a commitment to you when you were young and hot. And now that you're old and miserable, I don't think that commitment should stand. But of course, you're speaking to a guy who's made no commitment to anyone ever. Yes, I've dated. Yes, I've been in relationships. But maybe I shouldn't expose too much of myself. What difference will it make now? I've never been faithful to anyone in my life. Not one single counterpart. I have been unfaithful the first opportunity. In some counterparts, I've been unfaithful on the very first day. On the very first day. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm not ashamed to say it because eventually they were unfaithful to me. And knowing that I was unfaithful first gives me peace in my heart. It really, really makes me sleep better at night. And if you're looking for a way to give yourself peace in a relationship, I mean, you have to be unfaithful on the first day. Just knock it out of the park, and then for the rest of the relationship, you could be, the picture of perfection. You could be just the most romantic, most loving person she's ever met. And if she does do any dirt, then you know you did yours first, long ago, right? It's only a matter of doing it again now. It's not a matter of responding to her because you don't want that. You know what I mean? You don't want to be responsive. You want to be proactive. That's what you want to be with your deception. She concludes, if you do want to have more intimacy activity, get into the root cause of your intimate life, and communicating openly can make a massive difference and make sure you're both on the same page. I don't think so at all. I think in the end, the article sort of did go on a bit of a tangent. So the key important things, right, is really in the section where they break it down, the breaking down the frequency of intimacy by age. This part right here that I really want to read again. It says the average amount of intimacy people have in part depends on age group. Data from the Kinsey Institute research team found that American adults in the 18 to 29 age group have intimacy 112 times per year, right? And in the 30 to 39 age group, couples have intimacy about 86 times per year. So let me bring out my trusty calculator because I really didn't do these numbers before. So what we have here is we have 112 times 10 years, which is 1,120. I'll keep that number in mind. And then we have, so it's 1120 plus 86 times. So it's 1,120 from the time your partner was 18 to 29. But then if your partner continued from 30 to 40, you can add 860 times more in that next decade, which brings your partner's total amount of intimacy to 1,980. 1,980 by the time your partner is 40 years old. That's 2,000 sexual encounters by the time you and your partner are in your 40s. So, in the question of body count, if you are asking what is her body count, in truth, you will never know. And many people don't actually know because they weren't keeping count. They were just feeling the emotions and going through the paces. But this here tells you that the number of intimate encounters is truly, truly at around 2,000 intimate encounters. 2,000 intimate encounters. For those of you that were worried about body count that quite frankly you're never going to find out, right? You won't know the number, but you can know. You can rest assured, guaranteed that your partner has been intimate at least 2,000 times by the time they are 40, and more than 1,000 times by the time that they are 30 years old. So if you're dating somebody who's 30 and they started being intimate at 18, they are up to 1,000. And if they started a decade earlier, or almost, let's say they started in their teenage years, 13, 14, I mean, you know, you can add hundreds of intimate encounters. I'm not saying partners. I'm not saying intimate partners because we don't have those statistics. I'm saying intimate encounters. How many times that person has been intimate? We are talking 2,000. 2,000 by the time that they're 40, right? And it only gets more the longer they live, right? So if it's 1,000 every decade, and then after 40, it's about 500. So you're up to almost 2,500, right? 2,540 more. 540 more than our previous number. So it's about 2,500 intimate encounters by the time they are 45, 50 years old. So rest assured that your partner is well and truly experienced, right? You are not surprising them. You're not giving them anything new. They've been doing this at least 1,000 times by the time they're 30. and they'll do it at least 1,000 more before they are 40, right? So you can completely forget the issue of body count, and this is the issue that you should be concerned with: how many times they've been frequent. Because this one, we can actually work this out, right? But I suggest before you get your 1,000 or 2,000 intimate sessions in, I would suggest that you get a vasectomy, right? Because you can see very clearly these numbers also coincide with the number of people getting married, the age and number of people when they get married, and how many they get and how many people get married. These numbers coincide along with when people have kids. These numbers coincide with that. It's all happening between 20 and 40, really. By the time you're in your 40s, you're already up to 2,000. You've probably had kids already, right? So get a vasectomy and protect yourself. And I don't know how many of you are going to digest that number. It's a tremendous number. And this is just on an average, right? This is just on an average. It's tremendous. But these numbers are true for you too, right? So these numbers also ring true for you too. People are having a tremendous amount of intimacy, thousands over a lifetime, so you really need to protect yourself, because you only need to get it wrong one time. And if you're going to be having intimacy 100 times a year, you're going to need a vasectomy. You're really going to need a vasectomy. And these numbers, if they don't prove anything, they prove that. They prove that a vasectomy is absolutely necessary as you proceed in life. But this is the end of the video. This is the end of today's edification. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your focus. And thank you for watching. I really, truly appreciate it. And I always will. I am the Ancient One and the Bachelor Supreme. And I wish you a lovely evening.